Well, welcome to the Order of Monday Morning. I'll give the sign. All present are members of the Order of Monday Morning. I hope you had a wonderful 4th of July weekend. Um, there was fireworks, but it wasn't as loud, as close to our house here as it was last year. And we had a terrible, terrible tragedy just about, 35, 40 miles sort of west and north of us. A giant fireworks factory uh, ex exploded. Okay, before the 4th of July. It was a huge explosion. I believe seven workers were killed, and it was just very tragic. And it caused some fires because it's been very uh, dry here lately, and it was just and quite a few fireworks uh, displays, county and city displays uh, had to be canceled, or they had to quickly get a drone thing going. Um, but anyway, that's that. Something very, very encouraging uh, came in the mail just before the 4th, and I was tickled to read it. Uh, Now, I'm a Scottish Rite Mason. Okay, Scottish Rite Mason. I'm a Blue Lodge Mason too. Okay, but my dad was a member of the Scottish Rite. Also, that's the 32 degrees, 33 if you're a administrative kind of person. Uh, he was a Scottish Rite Mason down in Long Beach, and he joined the same year that I was born. And sort of growing up, I always sort of wanted to be a Mason, but never got around to it till I was like 50. Okay, and by then I'd been in serious occult organizations and the OTO. Okay, for like 25 years, and so I had a pretty good esoteric education and experience under my belt. So I wasn't looking for a great many overt occult thrills and chills out of my participation in Masonry. To my great surprise, uh, that for me, I did get wonderful, awesome esoteric thrills and chills out of it. But that's because more or less I came in with it, and I could recognize what was going on, and where probably a vast majority of Masons uh, aren't so well armed, uh, or even interested in that kind of stuff, because Masonry's a big, big tent. But anyway, growing up, my dad would get a periodical, a little miniature booklet size thing about the size of a TV guide, or if you remember a TV guide. Um, and it was called The New Age. And it had all these wonderful occult symbols on it. And it was the Scottish Rite, U.S. Southern jurisdiction, Scottish Rite, like periodical magazine. Okay, and none of the articles intrigued me at all. They seemed really old and lame and just like old crabby politicians and stuff. had no appeal to me whatsoever. But I really enjoyed my experience in the Scottish Rite, in the Blue Lodge, and then the Scottish Rite. And I was lucky enough that in Long Beach, the Long Beach Scottish Rite bodies, at the time I was in anyway, conferred each and every one of the degrees from 4 to 30, from 4 to 32. Most of them they mounted full blown with all the costumes and everything else that 100 years of literally, Hollywood set makers, because there's Long Beach, all the Hollywood Masons were involved in his magnificent production values and stuff. So I was so lucky. And not everybody wanted to go through each and every one. You sort of get your landmark degrees, which include the 32nd degree, and but to actually go back and get them all one at a time, it takes about a year. You donate your entire year of Friday nights, I think it was. But anyway, it was wonderful. And now the Scottish. Oh, and I've done other overtly. Okay, there are esoteric study groups and things like that. So I got my fill of wonderful esoteric thrills and chills, and I'm happy to say that young men are coming into both the Blue Lodge and the Scottish Rite, younger men than I, who are interested and are inspired by and are using the esoteric thrills and chills as a means of self-transformation and self-realization themselves. And so I'm very encouraged by that. And the new magazine is the Scottish Rite Journal, okay? And it's a magazine-size magazine. And this one came just before the 4th of July. Now, I constantly repeat that Masonry is a big tent, so they're very, very conservative brothers, okay, whose I would say religious and political opinions and leanings are totally different than mine, opposite mine. Thank God that Masonry is a big enough tent to include us both. But just before the 4th of July, I ran across this article. Okay. And the article is by Charles Edward Andrew Lincoln IV. And he's a 32nd degree Mason too. And Andrea Antonescu, 32nd degree. And Andrew Ullman, 32 degrees. And they're from the Valley of Washington, D.C., which they get to go to that magnificent Parthenon, the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. And I was reading, when I read the title, and I saw that they included the entire Declaration of Independence on it. I don't actually think they expected us to read it, but they showed the whole thing, and many of those signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons. Okay. It's a fact that we always bring up. But because of the present national and world situation, And the ideas that Masonry is worldwide, it is international. Uh, of course, Hitler outlawed Masonry in I think 1932 or 1938, outlawed Masonry. Uh, and the OTO. Okay. Dictators don't like Masonry. Okay. Uh, but anyway, so I was very curious as to what this little article was about. And I hope they don't mind, but I'm going to read it to you because I found it very edifying. So, the paradox of loyalty and rebellion. To speak of rebellion in the same breath as loyalty is to court paradox. The American War of Independence was a time of great upheaval, and at its heart were men who not only shaped the nation but also followed a set of guiding principles, many of them rooted in Freemasonry. The craft, particularly in its first degree, prescribes obedience as both civil duty and sacred command. The initiate is bound by solemn obligations to uphold the laws of the land, to respect civil authority, and to preserve peace and order, unless, crucially, these violate the higher moral law that Masonry itself presupposes. The obligations of a Mason include loyalty to one's country. Yet many of those who gathered in Philadelphia in 1776, those whose quills inscribed the Declaration of Independence, were Masons. Not merely nominally so, but deeply committed to the craft. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Paul Revere, and others who took obligations in darkened lodges and later took up arms against the sovereign to whom these same oaths seemed to bind them. At first glance, it is contradiction. On deeper examination, it is something closer to alchemical resolution. The Masonic oath does not bind the soul to tyranny. Rather, it pledges the initiate to a principle of ordered liberty, a civic virtue illuminated not by the will of kings, but by the light of reason, fraternity, and moral discernment. In this way, Masonic loyalty is loyalty to justice itself, not merely to institutions that may at times depart from her path. When justice is perverted, the oath does not command silence. It compels the opposite. John Locke, in his second treatise of government, declared that, quote, "When the government is dissolved, the people are at liberty to provide for themselves," unquote. It goes on, by erecting new legislative to secure the ends of liberty and justice. The point for Locke and later for the founders was not rebellion for its own sake, but it gets good. But resistance when lawful authority becomes lawless. The end of law, he continues, is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. This Enlightenment idea that justice and moral law supersede even sovereign command finds esoteric expression not only in the Blue Lodge degrees, but also in the teachings of the Scottish Rite. The degree of Knight Rose-Croix, for example, emphasizes fidelity to truth over obedience to despotism. The perfect Elu degrees, particularly the 10th, 11th, and 12th degrees, stress the necessity of moral discernment, holding rulers accountable, and exalting integrity above submission. In these higher degrees, one is reminded that to stand against tyranny may not be treason, it may be initiation. Thus, the Masons among the Founding Fathers did not so much break their oaths as elevate them. They interpreted the sacred obligation of the first degree not as a leash to passive submission, but as a call to active justice. Masonic principle, the Masonic principle of obedience to law, assumes that law is just. Where it is not, the Mason must, in Locke's words, which he uses repeatedly, quote, appeal to heaven. That is to say, to a higher tribunal of moral truth. One is left to ponder, as Albert Pike so poetically frames it in Morals and Dogma. Quote, man has natural empire over all institutions. They are for him, according to his development, not he for them. This seems to us a very simple statement, one to which all men everywhere ought to assent, unquote. That's in his lecture to the second degree fellowcraft. The Masonic founders did not respond to this philosophical issue with words. They responded with a republic. And that, again, to give full credit, where credit is certainly due, the paradox of loyalty and rebellion. Okay, from the Scottish Rite Journal. And actually, there's tons of stuff in here. Yeah, you know that like painting of me, where I'm looking like a kindly old gentleman that I am, and in a suit and everything else. That was painted and given to me by Travis Simpkins, who's a 33rd degree Mason, and he does all of these other portraits. There's Benjamin Franklin here. Here's Masonic Men of Science. See, and one of my favorites, Luther Burbank. It was amazing. All these guys were Masons. Anyway, that's it for today. That's sort of my 4th of July thing to share with you. Hope you enjoyed it. And now I got to get myself ready for Monday Night Magic class, which will be the last class on the subject of my new book, The Tarot Architect. Do you get the Masonic? Oh, you got to dig deep. The Tarot Architect. Please get it. How to be master builder of your own spiritual temple. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.